Happy Tuesday.
All right, welcome everybody to our Week 2 availability ahead of Boston College. Coach will make a quick statement here. We'll open it up for questions. Just a reminder, if you have a question, raise your hand and we'll get you the wireless mic.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's important to thank all our fans that came out to Norfolk for that football game. I know the outcome wasn't what any of us wanted, but the Hokie representation was awesome, and I appreciate it. And, I think we'll need our Hokie Nation this weekend, obviously. Everybody's super excited to be in Lane Stadium, Worsham Field, and I know our fans are excited as well. It's my first game as a head coach back in Lane Stadium, Worsham Field, and I'm excited. The staff's excited. I want to thank. I'm constantly reminded of the opportunity I have, and I want to thank Witt. I want to thank Dr. Sands. It's still the wins and losses. That doesn't impact how meaningful and how thankful I am for the opportunity to be the head coach here. So, at that point, I'll open it up for questions.
Brent, obviously, a lot happened in that season opener, both on the field, off the field. How do you regroup as a coaching staff and a team after that? Is there anything you learned from James Franklin about coming off a loss like that or a tough result?
One thing I've always believed, you have to find the positives in everything. And there were plenty of positives in that football game and plenty of positives in the trip overall that we can grow and build from. The second piece is I've always believed in practicing on Sundays. That's not something that Coach Beamer did. Other places, it's just you get a chance to get out there, win or lose, and make corrections, close the chapter, and move on to the next game. It's about being 1-0 this week. And I was thankful that there was a lot of positives to talk about in the locker room postgame. And the mistakes that were made, the majority of them are very correctable, and I would expect us to correct them. So, I think you guys know by now I'm transparent and forthright, and that's especially with our football team.
Connor Blummer put out a tweet the day after the game apologizing for an interaction after the game. Is there anything further to address with that? Do you have to say anything with him at all?
No, I know he felt terrible immediately following the game. When I first approached him, he was already regretful, and Connor's a really good young man, and that's not who he is, and it didn't sit well with him. It didn't sit well with me, and he felt like he wanted to come out publicly and do something, and I advised him to wait till the morning.
He'll play this week, though.
Yes, sir.
Any injury updates or anything? And how's Caleb Smith doing?
Yeah, he's going to be day to day. I will say this about Caleb. He's a tough young man, and, if he can go, he will. Obviously, he's an impact player for us offensively, and so he's doing everything he can.
I know it was a busy Friday. You had so much going on. How do you feel like the communication was in your first game between you and the staff and the players?
I think the communication with the players was, I'd probably give it a B+, and I'd probably say as a staff we're a B-. There were some things that we learned, and operating together as a first time in a true game-like situation, particularly with me calling the defense and also being the head coach. So, but I thought it went pretty good. I'll give us a B grade.
In terms of personnel, Alan Tisdale didn't make the trip. Is he out? Is he with the team, or is there any issues there with him?
Yeah, he's certainly with the team. He was our scout team player of the week this past week. He's been dealing with an eligibility issue that he's got our support, and he's doing everything he can to kind of get it right, as are we. So he's been working primarily with the scout team, but still stealing some reps on the varsity field as well.
Is that a week-to-week thing then? Or
it is a week-to-week.
So it's not like he has to miss a certain amount of
No,
time?
sir.
You don't know? Okay.
No, sir. So right now we're still trying to keep him in the fold enough that if we get the green light, then we're going to roll with him.
And then is Brianne Murray back with the team? And
yes, sir.
practicing,
Brianne is back.
He was allowed to play this week?
Yes, sir. Reinstated.
And then in terms of Jaden Keller, played a limited number of snaps. Seemed like Mcnulty got the most, especially in the first half. Was that a matchup issue, or what? Because you talked about Jaden all offseason. Just kind of curious as to why he didn't get as much playing time at the spot at will linebacker.
Yeah, that's a good question. Jaden's got great abilities. A guy we're excited about. He's struggled a little bit more than I would prefer in learning the system. Some of the mistakes, at this point, I think he's still got to work to clean some things up. And as he does that, his playing time will increase. He's a talented guy, and he's a great kid.
Let's go to the back of the room and Jermaine.
Hey, Coach, first of all, thanks for your time today. I got to ask you this. So, the NFL and high schools, they get to scrimmage and go up against other teams before the season starts. They don't do that at college level, which, is kind of bizarre. Is this something you would like to see? Because obviously, your first game is pretty much the opportunity to go up against someone else. But, the high schools and the NFL, they get an opportunity to work things out against other teams before the season kicks off.
Yeah, it's a great question. And obviously you'd like to do that. I think guys are more prepared, staffs are more prepared, particularly first-year staffs and shifts in schemes and things like that. But, ultimately, until you're in a true game environment that's meaningful, you really don't know what to expect. Practice, scrimmages, even a scrimmage against another opponent, if there's nothing on the line, how much do you really learn? There was a lot of adversity in that game. There were a lot of situations. The offense had a chance to win it. The defense had a chance to win it. I was a little disappointed there in our ability to close out the game, and thought we pressed at times. And those type of things you kind of have to go through and see where the team is, and then you can coach them and improve in those areas. But I don't think there's anything like the true game.
When you go back and watched on film, was there any kind of common denominator to the Wells interceptions that you saw as a defensive guy?
No, I don't think so. Two of them we kind of put on him. Were just one was kind of a poor decision, and one was kind of a poorly thrown ball. So, not anything that that lends to a pattern or anything like that.
We'd heard so much about his accuracy and ball security in August. Did that differ drastically from what you guys had seen over the preceding month?
No, I don't think so. He had a day in preseason camp where he threw a couple of bad balls, made a couple of bad decisions. Kind of came in spurts that day, and we hadn't seen that really. And I felt like that kind of happened the other night. It kind of got on him a little bit, but again, there's a lot that goes into an interception being thrown. Sometimes it's just the quarterback. Sometimes it's a wideout's mistake. Sometimes it's protection. So you go back and you look at each one and figure out, really what's at the root of it. And so we feel like there was, we've ID'd, and obviously nobody feels worse than Grant about it. But, he's a vet, and I look for him to rebound and play well.
You mentioned some of the positives. Looking at that defensive side of the ball, it seemed like a lot of guys really, really played well. Dax, Norrell, Nasir. What was your evaluation looking back on film on the defensive side of the ball, and what do you like?
Yeah, I thought the kids played pretty good. We've got a high standard, and I thought Dax played well. I was pleased with his performance. We needed to tackle a little better. We were a little bit sloppy at times. I think our depth showed up down the stretch. We got guys playing too many snaps. We've got to get some of those other guys to continue to develop where we're confident to put them in the game. Armani and Dorian played too many snaps. And so you wonder where their twitch, where their quickness is, where their ability to play the ball down the stretch. They played about every snap. And if they get a series off each half, I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but maybe. So we've got to continue to build depth at several positions.
Let's go out to Zoom real quick for a couple questions.
Can we start with David Teal, please, on Zoom?
Brent, you mentioned depth. Offensive line was a position where that was a question this season. Did you substitute at all Friday night on the O-line, and how would you say that group held up over 75 snaps?
Yeah, they played. I thought they really held it together. Played a ton of snaps. I don't think anybody else played, if I recall. Maybe Bob Schick a few pops, but those guys really held it together. And I was very pleased with our conditioning overall. It was their environment, their heat, their turf. And I believe they had 7 guys IV'd and we had none. And we played guys, a bunch of snaps. So we had a few light cramping issues, but nothing that required an IV. So I think all in all, for the snaps that a bunch of guys played, I was pleased with our conditioning and our, being prepared for the heat.
And then you worked with John Mcnulty at Penn State, coached against him when he was at Rutgers. What do you expect from him Saturday night now that he's BC's coordinator?
Yeah, John's a really good football coach, a great guy. He was an offensive analyst for us at Penn State, coached against him when he was at Rutgers, so familiar with John. He's got a lot of experience, and, so I look for him to have a great plan against us. He knows what we like to do.
Can we go to Hank, please, on Zoom?
Hey, Brent. You guys had a lot of penalties on Friday night, and I know Coach Beamer years ago used to have kids show up at 6 a.m. to run. Do you have a consequence for penalties you view as bad?
No, not a consequence for penalties unless they're just, blatant disregard for what we expect, right? A personal foul that is outside the parameters of what's okay, understanding each and every situation, but we certainly have some reminders for other things in the program where guys would come in early, but it would require something that really crosses the line. Penalties to me, it's a lack of discipline or lack of detail. Those are the ones that we have to fix. There's in-game penalties that occur. There were several that I didn't agree with that were discussed in the locker room pregame with the officials. But too many penalties, obviously. You eliminate 4 or 5 penalties, could be the difference in the game. And you take away one takeaway, could be the difference in the game.
What are the consequences for penalties you don't like?
Yeah, well, they're great. They're obviously downgraded on it at their position. And that was a focus in the team meeting. Penalties was one of the things that was talked about a bunch.
We go to Fago, please.
Hey, Coach. After the loss this weekend, what encouraging words did you give your players, and what positive takeaways did you see with going into the next game?
Yeah, obviously, you always want to highlight the positives. There's so many good things that occurred in the game. I thought our ability to run the football, we have to be able to do that. I was very pleased with Keyshawn King. I thought the offensive line operated very well together. I thought the ability for us to stop the run defensively and minimize explosive plays. We won the explosive play battle in the game. We won the sack battle. We won or tied the drive start battle. So there's certainly plenty to I thought one of the big things was there was some major adversity in the game, right? There's a snap over the head. It's a score for them. And, we were able to bounce back and regain the lead after, some major adversity in the game, which I think is a sign of a good team.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
We go to Tim Sullivan, please.
Hey, Brent, I know you addressed it a little bit after the game, but the clock management at the end of regulation, have you evaluated or do you plan to evaluate some of the processes that you guys have so that you can make sure the awareness and the decision making in terms of clock management is something that you can get right going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great learning situation. There were several of those in the game, some of them not as apparent as others, that we addressed as a staff on Saturday. All those situations that come up, whether we handled it well or maybe not as well. You want to talk about those, discuss those. We talked about things that happened in other games over the weekend to continue to educate ourselves and prepare us, to make the best decisions, in game. But we got to do a better job there at the end, particularly me.
We go back to David Teal, please.
Brent, with Friday's announcement that the CFP is going to expand to 12 teams, do you like that number? And are you pleased that the 6 highest rated conference champions will receive automatic qualification?
Honestly, I haven't thought much about it. Right now we're just trying to be 1-0 this week, and we're worried about Boston College. And, there was a lot of discussion about it going into the season, but that's not on my list right now.
Can we take one more on Zoom from Hank, please?
Hey, Brent. With all the talk you preseason talked about Jalen and how well he'd been doing, he played sparingly on Friday night and was involved in probably the decisive play of the game. What do you tell him to kind of get him back on board and get him back on the beam and doing
I'm sorry,
what he
who
needs to do?
are you referring to?
Jalen Holsten.
Yeah, Jalen. Yeah, he didn't get to practice much leading up to that game. Because of his injury, he was very limited. And I look forward to him having a good week of practice to get back to his A game. I think that's what will be required.
All right, we're going to finish up with 2 here in the room. We'll go Brooke and then Mike to finish.
Hey, Coach. Good morning.
Hey.
You were saying that you guys like to practice the next day, so assuming you guys practice Saturday, what does a day like that look like, especially after the game when you were talking to Mike about there were immediate details you guys could fix? So what did that Saturday practice look like? Do you guys kind of attack that right off the bat?
Yeah, so we did give him off Saturday with the extra day, and so we had a normal Sunday, which is a team meeting. One group will lift, one group will watch film, and then we'll all go out and practice. And practice is structured where it's a warm-up to get them physically kind of greased up and get the kinks out, the soreness out. And then it's a correction period, multiple periods. We dive in, and one of the things I asked, the staff on both sides of the ball and even on teams was the mistakes that were made, what are we doing in practice to correct them? How are we going to fix the penalties, that are correctable? What do we need to do to make sure they don't occur again? So those things are addressed in the meetings and then addressed on the field. And then about halfway through that practice, we make a big announcement, and we move on to the next opponent, and the door closes, on the last one.
2 for you. With a couple things you mentioned after the game, you said you thought the offensive line could have moved at a better tempo and that you might have wanted to run more. So was that you referring to you wanted to run more fast tempo? And after looking at the thing, how do you put your stamp on the offensive game plan? Is it now after film review, do you kind of go back and say this is what I would have liked to seen because you're not able to maybe do that as much during the game? Just kind of how do those pieces work and how that all fits together for you?
Yeah, first of all, I just, and that's the defensive coordinator in me. I felt we were running the ball very well. They'd make a stop here or there and fall into one. But I thought from my perspective, I said to Tyler a couple of times in the game, listen, you guys are running the ball. They can't control the run right now. I think we could have ran the ball a few more times for sure. The tempo, no. I think when I refer to tempo, it's us operating at normal game tempo, like getting to the line, getting set. That's where some of those pre-snap penalties occurred. Not enough urgency to get to the line and be ready to go.
And then just to give you a chance to comment, obviously the players had some things stolen. I know you guys referred comment to Old Dominion, but did they reach out directly to you? And what do you tell players? I mean, that probably was not a fun bus ride for the players that were impacted. Trying to calm them down on top of a loss. What did you kind of tell them, and what was kind of your reaction to kind of what transpired?
Obviously, Danny White, Mike Hazel, those guys, great support. I mean, they were all over this from the get-go. Certainly myself, whatever these guys needed in the moment. Families, we delayed our departure quite a bit as we were dealing with the local police. And, certainly a disappointing thing. I haven't been around that. It's the visiting team's responsibility, and, it was disappointing. But you just don't expect something like that to happen.
Does that make you review your procedures at all, just to maybe put somebody there that, I mean, I know it's not supposed to be, but like, you know, we've talked about how you kind of evaluate things, maybe having a staffer there
Yeah.
just in case. I mean, is that
Yeah,
something you'll
the-
think about kind of?
Yes,
those
there'll be an
situations?
insurance policy in place. You know, it was, you know, you trust the home team to take care of that. And to be honest, it made me say, make sure we're handling our business here. You know, that's, you just don't want a visiting team. I'm not much for them having a nice locker room. I could care less, as long as it's functional. But something like that, I mean, that's a personal, you know, that wasn't a good feeling after the game for those kids, for our team, to be honest. That locker room, you know, that's a sanctuary. And, you know, to come in and deal with a tough loss and have that occur, and then impact our travel plans. You know, everybody gets home later, and it's just not how you want to handle things.
Did you reach out to the parents individually?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not individually, no.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.